Hello and welcome back, and today I want to compare two NAS devices. Now, all too often I will compare NASs from the guys at Synology and QNAP. The reason being, the number of you that are out there looking for a nice solid desktop solution will often fall on these two companies, being as they are the top of the game when it comes to network attached storage in this price point. Now, these two devices I'm talking about today have been released something like 2 months apart, but they are very, very much, products of their respective brands, and all the kind of ethos, all the kind of important, and all the kind of elements of each brand has been poured into these two devices, which arrive at near enough the same price point, around 800 to 860 quid, including the tax. So between these two, you are getting fine examples of what both brands are putting out there at the moment. However, the architecture is different in so many ways, internally and externally. And a number of you that are buying your first NAS, if you're a prosumer at home or if you're a small medium business user who are looking at these two and have looked at the spec sheets and looked at the hardware and the software, have just gone, what? How can two things at the same price be so different? So today's video, we are going to compare these two NASs. This is the QNAP TS-h973AX, and we're comparing it against the Synology DS1621 Plus. Now, the more observant of you, or at least the ones that can count, will know and already have noticed that these two systems do have a different number of bays. Even the names kind of give you a little bit of a clue about that. The Synology has 6 bays of storage for SATA hard drives there at the front, and inside there is also 2 NVMe M2 cache slots that let you install NVMe SSDs at PCIe Gen 3x4 each to allow you to bestow the performance benefits of those SSDs, the high IOPS, the high read rates, towards the larger but slower and more affordable hard drive array. In the case of the QNAP, we have 5 main hard drive storage bays there at the top. However, each one of those bays is also assisted by 4 SSD bays there at the bottom. So you've got 2 U2 NVMe bays. That's the larger cased version of NVMe that allows larger storage and has a proprietary SAS connection. And there is also 2 SATA SSD bays at the base. So you have a total of 9 bays, which also allow for tiered and cache storage with the SSDs against the hard drives, but also those areas of storage can be used for raw storage as well. That's right, you can put data directly on the NVMe U2 drives or directly on the SATA SSD drives at the bottom. Now, the Synology does allow you to put 2.5-inch SSDs in the main bays and use them for raw storage, but this system is tailor-made to be used predominantly for SATA 3.5-inch storage bays going there in the front. And that's just the tip of the iceberg about the difference between these two devices. There's going to be a whole lot of differences to cover, but before we go any further, let's talk about what they've got in common, and let's talk about, regardless of which one of these two you buy, what are you actually getting, what you should expect. Well, 850 to 860 nicker these days between these two will give you a fully fledged combined hardware and software solution. Both of them arrive with exactly the same CPU in the relatively new Ryzen embedded SoC chip, the V1500B, a server-grade processor that's a quad-core 2.2 GHz processor. It's also accompanied by DDR4 memory, but there are differences between them, with the Synology arriving with 4 GB of ECC DDR4 SODIMM memory, and that can be upgraded to 32 GB, whereas the TS-h973AX starts at 8 GB minimum, and that's non-ECC, but still DDR4, and that can be upgraded to 32 GB as well. Now remember, same price there, so there's going to be elements where both of these brands are going to take a lead in very different ways. Now, still having the same CPU does mean that both of them can provide a great spectrum of applications in their respective app centers. Both of them have got collaboration suites in their own respective ways of multimedia applications for photos, videos and music. They both have applications for AI assisted photo recognition in Synology Moments and QNAP's QMaggie program, and Synology is bringing out very soon in DSM-7 Synology Photos, which combines PhotoStation and Moments into one application. They both have support of word processing, editing, Excel documents, Word documents, and more directly on the NAS via the browser without using third-party cloud tools. But I will add that the QNAP supports Office 365 in its opening of documents, and you have to sign it up to the account, but then after that everything's internal, so you will be utilizing, you're able to utilize Word and Excel and all those different applications to edit files directly on the NAS. On the Synology, they've got their own proprietary applications with Synology Office, which again opens all of those processing documents in their own first-party tool. But they've gone one step a little further there with Synology Chat, which is an alternative to WhatsApp and Skype, to have all of your business users, all of your clients, or your staff being able to communicate and collaborate as well. The QNAP, on the other hand, doesn't really have tools like that. It does have a number of communication applications, but they're pretty much all third party. Now, after that, they both have their own file management tools, but there are a lot more on offer on the QNAP, such as they've both got their own file station application, which is the file browser tool, and the Synology arrives with Synology Drive, which is a great tool for being able to open files in your web browser in a single portal access point that will open all the different file types via that window. But there's also client applications and applications that allow you to pin files on a Windows environment, with Mac coming soon, so you can file stream, pin files, and have a much more intelligent, space-saving, localized drive that is connected to the NAS. So you can use your own proprietary third-party tools on your Mac or Windows system, but using the storage of the NAS. On the other hand, QNAP have gone a slightly different way. They've got their QSync applications, but the majority of their tools for file management, although you can create a shared drive and a nice SCSI LAN and stuff like that, and synchronize with a localized folder, a lot of their file management improvements are within the applications with QFiling and QSearch. There's a number of client applications you can download, and both of them do have great file management applications inside, but there's a little bit more work towards the internal file structure on the QNAP handling than there is on the Synology, but the Synology has a much broader range of tools for localized and NAS file management. Now, they both arrive with surveillance tools, with Surveillance Station on the Synology and QVR on the QNAP, and between the two of them, I will say that the QNAP QVR tool is the more powerful of the tool, and it has more camera licenses included, but I would say that the Synology surveillance platform is a great deal easier to learn how to use. It's a little bit more intuitive, and it runs better within the web browser. It's configured so you can access the entire control deck via the web browser, whereas with the QNAP, the majority of camera work and handling is conducted via localized installed client applications. So there's different ways in which they handle cameras, but they both support a whole range of cameras inside. They both also arrive with a myriad of third-party application support, and of course including Plex Media Server, of which both of them perform very, very well. We've just finished recording the Plex testing on the 973AX. They both stood very toe-to-toe on that one, which is quite impressive. On top of that, they both arrive with their own cloud synchronization and backup tools with their Synology's own C2 service, a trial included, but also Hyper Backup and Active Backup Suite managing synchronization locally and with remote servers, cloud services, USB, you name it. You can create a multi-tiered backup strategy that covers multiple platforms, as well as connecting with those cloud services too. And future updates in DSM-7 easing the migration and easing the synchronization with those cloud tools even further, with the likes of Office 365 and G Suite with all of its accounts and email control. But the thing is, all of that is available now in the QNAP. It's not something you've got to wait for. It's arriving with it, with box safe. But you've also got the added benefits of hybrid mount. And with hybrid mount, you can bolt on the NAS storage, the cloud that you've got outside your Google Drive, your Dropbox, your even a larger object-based storage, bolt it on to the available storage on the QNAP, and be able to use all of the QNAP tools and all of your localized tools that you're accessing the NAS remotely on the cloud storage area. It's not just a visible area of blobby storage up here, it's actually usable to the NAS with the appearance of a localized area of storage. There's also the reverse with virtual JBOD or VJBOD that allows you to use some or all of a NAS's storage to make it available to another NAS or make it available to the cloud as a nice blob of storage to play with there. Now, these are services, one and all, one shape or another, that are arriving on the Synology platform, but not quite yet. They're still in beta with DSM-7, and although DSM-7 is taking a fraction longer than we'd like, and these tools are available, such as hybrid share, we're still waiting to see this come to full fruition from the Synology platform and how much of it makes its way towards third-party clouds, not just their own cloud service. It's going to be interesting to see which way they go on that. Now, software moving forward from that, there is one other big distinction between these two, and that is that the Synology arrives with support of ext4 and BTRFS as its file system, and the QNAP arrives with a choice between ext4 and ZFS. Both of these NASs have gone in to really push their own kind of specifically chosen file system at the top end. Now, BTRFS is largely available on the majority of Synology NASs right now. It has benefits such as file self-healing, where integrity checks are made on file transmission at the beginning and the end and repairs are made. There's also lower resource consuming snapshots there in the background and faster shared folder duplication. There's a few other extra tiny benefits, but that's the core of where they live. Also, not because of BTRFS, but certainly worth highlighting, the Synology platform arrives with Synology Hybrid RAID, the ability with the drives to mix and match your hard drives in your RAID array and get the best possible capacity out of them. SHR is not as high performing as ext4. You do lose a little something along the way, but it is a great sense of fluidity in the product's lifespan to scale up your storage or part populate on day one and add larger drives down the line. Now, the ZFS file system on the 973AX, known as QNAP TS-h973AX, this involves, it doesn't have the flexible RAID storage system and it doesn't have the BTRFS benefits, but it does have the benefits of ZFS, such as the removal of the volume layer when installing and saving data on the system. You're going straight on the storage pool. You've removed that one from the middle, and it increases performance and makes things so much quicker. With RAID building, RAID rebuilding in the event of a drive failure, and RAID resilvering, all of them taking place in a fraction of the time of the QNAP, the Synology. To put it into perspective, a RAID 5 or SHR build with this device fully populated would take somewhere between 8 and 12 hours with larger drives. On this, you are talking minutes to build that. We used 3 10 TB drives and did a RAID 5, and it took shy of 3.5 minutes to build that, and that's because of the removal and the no need to do the synchronization. On top of that, the ZFS file system on here arrives with triple parity options. It arrives with 3 disk failure there, so you can have it so that if you lose drives along the way, things can be recovered a great deal easier. Of course, it's worth remembering that even on a system like this, if you were to take advantage of triple parity on those hard drives, that means you're going to lose 3 disks of storage and only have 2 to play with overall. So the benefits of triple parity are questionable in a system like this if capacity is so important to a number of us. That said, it is worth highlighting that these 4 bays of storage there at the base of the system, although 2 of them are U2 NVMe that use a proprietary SAS connection, it's worth highlighting that all 4 can be populated with SATA SSDs. They can go in here and you can upgrade to U2 down the line. So it does give you the ability to create one giant supersized area of storage here and another one up here, which are either synchronized or used in their own separate ways. Which leads us on now to ports and connections between the two of them, because I think between BTRFS and ZFS, the benefits are far more integral to different industries. There's a reason why BTRFS is available on the majority of Synology's range, but SHR isn't. They are aware that there are slight performance limitations to SHR, but BTRFS is still a very reliable file system, although a number of you I know will err towards the hungrier ZFS platform. But the reason I talk about the storage media overall is it leads us into the next area of distinction between these two devices, and that is to do with how you interface with them. Now, in terms of design, both of these systems do look, quite good, although I would say that the Synology probably has the more classically attractive look to its chassis, although arguably larger. The QNAP, on the other hand, is a little bit more industrial looking. It's a bit sharper edged. But when we look at the rear, we can see some key areas of distinction between them. So first and foremost, let's talk about the dullest thing. Let's talk about the USB drives. They've both got USB 3 drives all over them, but it's worth highlighting that the Synology only has USB 3.2 Gen 1, whereas the QNAP has a combination of 3.2 Gen 1 and 3 USB 2 Gen 2, 10 gigabits per second connections here in USB-C and A. Now both of them arrive with support of external drives, and again, if you're using Gen 1 you're going to get 5 gigabits per second or 500 megs, and if you're using Gen 2 you can get up to 1000, which is great stuff. But after external storage, be it for backups or just making external drives network accessible, that's when there's another disparity between them, because the Synology largely dedicates those USB drives to that. There are a few other things you can use them for, some upgraded wireless adapters, although there are fewer and fewer on the market. On top of that, using it for UPSs, using it for printers and scanners and other configuration devices. The QNAP, on the other hand, although it doesn't have HDMI out, so KVM is off the table, there are numerous network adapters that allow you to add 5GBE ports to this device and add further network interfaces with the device. There's also improved network wireless USB adapters supported by this, as well as Bluetooth adapters as well. There's a wider range and compatibility of devices. Some of them you may never use, but it's nice to have that option. Talking of networks, we can talk about the primary, I would say, day-to-day connections of these two devices. You may have noticed that there are 4 network interface ports here on the Synology and only 2 on the QNAP. Well, there is arguments for and against. The ports on the Synology are 1 GBE in architecture, so 100 megabytes each, and they can be link aggregated to a total 4 GBE or 400 megabytes per second, give or take, up to about 440 if you're lucky. Whereas on the QNAP, these are 2.5 GBE ports. Each one can give you, in a supported network environment, up to 250 megs each, or combine them with link aggregation for 500 megs transmission. And as if that's not enough, this device has got 10 GBE. It's got 10 GBE on the back, which means 1000 megs output possible with a supported network switch or interface on your system. Now, the Synology does not arrive with 10 GBE off the bat. It does have this PCIe upgrade slot, PCIe Gen 3 x 8, so up to 8000 megabytes per second transmission between a card and the host board inside, which means you could install a 1-port card inside there very easily. This one retails for about 110, 120 quid. It's the Synology 10G single port card, and it will add 10 GBE to this device. But that PCIe also allows installation of dual port cards, larger cards, 25 GBE, 40 GBE connections. Not that you're going to be able to saturate a connection of that size in a 6-bay like this, but you still have the ability to add those greater network connections here on this than you can on this. But all of those come at an additional price, with each card retailing for as little as £80 to £100 and then going all the way up to £253 and £350 at least for the most basic grade Intel or Mellanox card that's going to go to those greater than 10 and 20 GBE connections. Now, the QNAP have included that 10G by default, which is impressive, because at this price point, particularly with the other features we've talked about, I didn't expect it to have 10 GBE, and the fact that it's there is a good thing. But is everything good? No. It's worth highlighting that despite the fact that the Synology has a metal chassis and the QNAP has a plastic chassis, the QNAP overall made a little bit more noise. Now, arguably, the fact that this has got 2 fans and the majority of the entire chassis is metal, you'd think this would be the noisier. But having them both running simultaneously for our software overview video, which I think is already live, this one was the pinch more noticeable. And I think a lot of that is to do with this single larger fan, and it needs that cooling when you've got that level of storage all there in the front in a you know, impressively compact chassis, but in terms of noise, this does make a pinch more. Now, obviously, if you use hard drives of more, you know, enterprise nature, some larger ones, knocking around 8 TB and above, chances are the hard drives are going to make more noise than these systems. So if you're going to go for the bigger drives, it becomes less of a problem. But it's definitely something to note. Now, another area is, of course, warranty, with both of them arriving with 3 years of manufacturer's warranty that can be extended to 5 by the purchase of an additional license, and both of them do arrive with the full complement of applications that both brands have on offer to you, the end user. But it's worth remembering that this is the ZFS one, and therefore the ZFS software, although far more featured and brings a lot more to the table with inline data deduplication, inline compression, all of that RAID recovery and rebuilding a great deal faster, and just general better performance, comes at a price. There's a reason this has 8 gig of memory. If you're using all of those features and you've not even gone near virtual machines, you've not even gone near containers or anything like that yet, this will still be utilizing 4 to 5 gig of memory because of all of those base level features if you've got them all enabled early doors. So bear in mind that the extra hardware that this arrives with is there for a reason. Now, when DSM-7 arrives on the scene, this could be a very different comparison. Right now, as far as the base level DSM arrives and QNAP TS-h973AX ZFS comes right now, this is the better performer of the two. You've got better hardware involved, you've got better ports and connections, better multimedia support, and just better background caching, compression, and that deduplication as mentioned. Right now, between the two of these, in terms of performance, the QNAP is winning this by miles, but it may not be the case when DSM-7 arrives, because it has improvements in its background caching, it has improvements in its socket with regard to the web browser access, and in the DSM-7 private preview that we've already been experimenting with, we've already seen a lot of those improvements firsthand. So it's going to be very interesting looking at this comparison next year to see how much things have changed. Between the two of them, if you want a nice user-friendly solution and you don't have an IT guy on hand, the Synology is going to be the better pick for you. However, if you are a bit more technologically versed, if you do have a 10 GBE or even 2.5 or 5 GBE network environment, or you're looking for more future-proofing overall, the QNAP is the better pick because between the two of them, you just get more for your money overall. I love the 1621 Plus, but it has to be said that the 973AX is throwing a not insignificant amount of shade on it, and I think it warrants us to notice that. So I look forward to maybe redoing this review, this comparison, next year, because I'm really interested to see how DSM-7 mixes the game up. But this has been my comparison of the TS-h973AX versus the Synology DS1621 Plus. Let me know what you think in the comments, and click like if you've enjoyed the video, and subscribe to learn more. Visit the links in the description, we'll be going into more detail, and visit the guys at span.com, the NAS experts, to help you every step of the way and get the right solution for you. I will see you next time.